Rabbi Adler, this may be a little hard because, obviously so many beautiful stories and encounters, conversations that you bring down. Your favorite personal Rav Soloveitchik story, if you may.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to have to zero in on one of most probably my greatest defining moments with the Rav. There was a great philanthropist, Joseph Grus, alav shalom, who donated much money. The Rav told me $100 million to Jewish causes before he even met him. And it was a whole story how it came about, and I write about it in the book, how the Rav ultimately brings Mr. Grus into the world of philanthropy for Torah. And ultimately, Grus becomes a great friend of Torah education, where he builds a new building in the Borough Park section of Brooklyn of my high school alma mater, Yeshiva Torah Semis Kamenetz, and he makes a dinner in that building honoring himself, and he invites all the other great Rabbanim who he gave money to. And at that dinner was Rav Moshe Feinstein, and it was Shneir Kotler from Lakewood, and it was Rav Kalmanovich from Mir, and there really was an all-star cast of Gedolim at this. And everybody was given 2 minutes to say nice words about Mr. Grus. The Rav was the guest speaker, and he spoke 20 minutes. In the book, you can see what he said at that time. But what happened was, at the end, the moment his speech ended, the Rav came off the podium, and the waiters started coming out serving food. Because I was an alumnus of this yeshiva, the executive director had invited myself and my wife also. They knew I was coming because I was the driver. But in the car was also the Rav's son-in-law, Rav Professor Yitzhak Twersky, Zechar Lebracha, who came in for this dinner as well. And as the waiters were coming out with the food, the Rav comes off the podium, signals to me, "We're going." I said, "Rabbi, what do you mean we're going? We're sitting down to eat a dinner now. We came for a dinner." He said, "No, we're going. I had to tell my wife, guess what? We're leaving. We're not eating here." So disappointed at all, we get into the car, and Rabbi Twersky, alav shalom, tells me, "I have to make a plane in LaGuardia in 20 minutes. I said, "Rabbi Twersky, this is the Brooklyn Queens Expressway. I'm not sure I can do this." He says, "If you get me to that plane, I will give you a smicha in Maaseh Merkava," which is the chariot scene of Yecheskel Hanavi, which I'm going to say parenthetically, he made the plane. And years later, in a lecture that he gave as a guest speaker in the Ben Gurion University, I went in to hear him, and he looked at me and he said, "I owe you a klaf, a certificate, a parchment, because, I owe you a smicha," because he remembered that I made the plane. Fine. We're at the airport, in the LaGuardia airport. I drop off Rabbi Twersky. I'm going to drive to Washington Heights to the Rav's apartment. And the Rav tells me, "I'm hungry." I said, "Rebbe, we were just at a dinner." The waiters are just rolling out the food, and you asked to leave, and now you told me you're hungry. I remembered that this is now Sunday night. The Rav always came in on Tuesday. My brother would always fill up the refrigerator on Monday with food. I knew the refrigerator was empty. I said, "Rebbe, there's no food in your apartment. I live in Kew Gardens Hills, 10 minutes away from LaGuardia Airport. Please come to my house, and I'll give you dinner, and I'll bring you back to the yeshiva." And he agreed. My wife's sitting in the back seat. She's ready to faint. But we came home, and we spent 3 hours with the Rav in my house. He spent some time trying to calm my wife down. So with some small talk about people in the neighborhood, he was charming, absolutely charming. You have to realize that the Rav in Boston was very personable, very approachable. In New York, he was stoic. We had awe. There was a tremendous amount of awe. The fact that I had a little bit of a warming down effect because of the driving, that was unusual. But for most people, they just, they just couldn't open their mouth for the Rav. And here he was sitting in the house, and we were talking and schmoozing about different things of great importance, about the history of Glat Kosher, for example, and which I write about in the book, and his approach to the Mussar movement, which I write about in the book. There are conversations that happened in that encounter of those 3 hours that we'll never forget it. We'll never, ever forget it. How remarkably pleasant that, because I was unsure of how this was going to work out. Who was going to come to my house? And we didn't have my wife was expecting her first. We were young marrieds. And it was a quiet, empty house, and there he was. there he was, and charming, absolutely charming. It was just wonderful. I say it was a defining moment for us, because from then on, all conversations became, it started off in a different place already. It really started off. I can tell you that in the time that I took the Rav to the cemetery to his father, so I talk about the fact that he took out a Tillim. It's the two of us, spooky. It's two of us standing in a cemetery in the daytime, 3 p.m. And he takes out a Tillim. And they didn't take out a Tillim. He said a pair of Tillim by heart. I said this was a Litvak Askara. No tears, no emotion, dry as they come. Then he takes me by the hand, like a grandfather. And we take a little tour of the monuments in this plot called Chevra Anshe Brisk, this brisk society of New Yorker immigrants, and he's telling me who each person was. He knew them. It was just wonderful. We really felt that we earned a third grandfather in our life. It didn't happen to most of the students in the Shir. The people in Boston did have that qualitative edge over us, that they saw the Rav as a Rav, and we saw him as a Rosh Yeshiva, and it's two different personas completely. So it was a tremendous schut, a tremendous merit that I got to see the Rav on that level. And I dedicated the book to my older brother, who Kadosh Baruch Hu should give him a refuah shlema. He was the Rav's shamus. He was the Rav who was attending to the Rav's needs in the apartment that year in 74. He called me up in September and he asked me if I would be the Rav driver that year. I said yes. I hung up the phone. I almost fainted. I literally almost fainted. Just think for a second, I have a 10-year-old Chevrolet and the Rav's going to sit to my right. I mean, how are we going to do this? But we mustered enough courage up. I can tell you that I was at LaGuardia Airport the first Tuesday before the Rav even got to Logan Airport in Boston. I was so nervous that first time. But then I got over it and I knew when to come on time.
Yeah, this has been absolutely magnificent, just fascinating and really beautiful stories, and urge all our viewers and listeners, as I did, simply to go on to Amazon, click of a button, free delivery anywhere in the world, 70 conversations in transit with HaGaon, Rav Yosef Soloveitchik, Zechatzadok the Bracha, and Rabbi Adler. Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you very, very much. And as we enter Tisha B'Av, we should have days of nechama, of consolation, and a little achdut of unity amongst all of Klal Yisrael.
Amen. Thank you again. Thank you.